Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today with episode 231 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it is me, Karak, with ACG.
Karak, as always, I like to ask how you're doing.
Absolutely excellent.
Excellent.
I'm excited for this weekend.
Yes. What are you excited for?
I'm doing Mech Warrior, so I'm playing that now for review, but
Nice.
I'm going to do more Skyrim VR, like I was talking to you prior to
Oh,
the
yeah. Yeah. You were pretty
podcast
pumped
starting.
about that, right?
Yeah, I'm pumped for reasons people would find probably homicidal. But, dude, it's been a blast.
All right. Yeah. So you got a nice pair of shades on. I got a nice Echo.
Yeah, my eyes fucked up, so sorry. It's killing me. So, yeah, we're the perfect podcast today.
We really are. Everything's. See, that's the thing. People will complain about quality, consistency, but I feel like the beauty of our show is you don't know what to expect. One day we'll have the overlay, one day we won't. Some days I'll be in the studio where there's a little bit of a reverb. Some days I won't be, and I'll be in my room where the sound is dead as fuck.
Yeah. You just have to prepare. It's on you.
Yeah,
it's on you.
Absolutely. So any future projects outside of Mech Warriors, or is that just the only thing we're looking at?
Yeah, for now that I can talk about, just because I don't want to say it and have somebody be like, "You said you were going to do this." Oh, actually, one thing I am doing, I do couch confessionals, whatever you want to call it. But basically, all it is games I didn't have the time to review, like Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
Where it's patron only. So it's like
Okay.
20, 25 minutes of like, here's a game I didn't get to beat, but what I think. And that'll come out Monday.
I like that.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
It's got like a kind of like a porn innuendo tied into your name. Couch
a little bit.
confessional.
Yeah. It's got. Yeah, I should do the porn because I did do a couch as the picture for it.
Right.
I should just replace it with a Pornhub couch. It would fit.
It would. For me, it's just we're coasting into the holidays. So right now, as it stands, I'm working on Patron videos. Those videos will go live towards the end of the year into January as I'm off on a holiday break. That won't be till December 20th, December 21st, maybe, because we still have like 1 week of the podcast left. Maybe Karak and I will like double up with a discussion so you guys don't have zero podcasts while we're gone.
That'd work.
Yeah, and we also talked a little bit about maybe like changing up how the shows ran in a number of ways for 2020 to kind of reinvigorate things for our show. So we got a number of plans for moving forward. But for me right now, it's just a lot of future prep. I will be the first to say I am tired. I am ready for some good time off. So my goal is just hitting that finish line. I got the Darksiders Genesis code like super early. I feel bad I couldn't review it because like as I said, I've been future prepping, so I'm working on like 5 different things at once. I'm still working away on the documentary. So for me, it's just like I got it dropped in my inbox. I'm like, oh, early code finally, and I can't use it. You played it though, right?
Yeah, and you got it. You didn't even know because it was in spam, right? Isn't that what you?
No, that was Kingdom Under Fire too. Yeah, that's the one we were talking about last week. That was sitting in spam.
Yeah, that shit happens. But I beat Darksiders Genesis, and yeah, it's good. It's good. It's well, I mean, I think it's good. Some people aren't, but yeah, it's like a Diablo light, I guess, or Diablo medium.
Yeah, I heard there's not like loot. It's Diablo style gameplay, but
yeah, the loot is these creature cores for killing enemies, and they fit into this jewel board you have. So like a board will have an attacking opening for a slot, and you can throw any jewel in there, but it'll only give you a part of the bonus. So if you throw an attacking jewel into an attack slot, it'll do more of a bonus. And so it's a lot like the Final Fantasy, like MMOs and role-playing games where they'll have some kind of upgrade. And it's like you move this here and you get extra. And that's basically what happens here. But the cool thing is the main bosses have their own special jewels they drop. And those do change. So the grinding isn't for weapons. It's for these jewels, which are random and which are like loot, truly.
Have you ever seen a more experimental series? Think of it from start to now.
Yeah,
like,
it's crazy.
Right? You have the first one, which is more like, I'm going to try to be God of War and Zelda. Then the second one's really just open world. Third one's, very inspired, I'd say, by Souls. And then this one's like an overhead shoot 'em up sort of game with deeper systems than I think what meets the eye. It's crazy. And so I'm very excited for Darksiders 4 because Darksiders 3 was a success last year, despite where it launched. And against all odds that it found success, I think may speak to THQ and say, like, okay, we got something people care about here. So hopefully they do invest more in a Darksiders 4, which, by the way, for folks listening at home, Darksiders 4 is not Darksiders Genesis. They said it was like a prequel, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's cheap. It's
25 right now. If you
$25
bucks.
Yeah. So
Steam.
And it's 2-player or 1-player switching between the characters. So you don't have to choose one guy and then miss out on the other guy. You can switch at any time.
Yeah, and don't buy it on Stadia because you have to pay $40 for it, which is $10 more than even when it's available on Steam.
Yeah, it's weird. I will say that graphically it's awesome because those games, their graphic style is like WoW, and so they age a little better. And yeah, like each game's been different. I wasn't a fan of 3 near as much as, at all compared to a lot of people I saw. But with Genesis, they did switch it up, and it actually works, dude. Like there's a lot of puzzling and platforming. Platforming doesn't always work because of the 3/4 view and like trying to get your mouse and keyboard or your joystick to all match up.
Gotcha.
But it's cool to see them experiment. Dude, and I said that in the review. I was like, I don't know of another series where somebody's just like, boom, here's a fucking, like driving game. And then boom, here's an FPS game. It's pretty cool that they mess around and try different things.
Good stuff. All right. For those of you who are maybe new to the show, welcome to the H.A.M Radio Podcast. We're a weekly gaming podcast. We go live for free every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. But if you want to go ahead and get early access, you can flick us a single $1 on my Patreon. And if you do so, like I said, you get early access. A couple more bucks gets you into the Discord, and inside there you'll meet one of the best communities in gaming, very active Discord at that. And there will be a section for podcast questions where you can go ahead and submit for that. You can also submit for my other podcast, ran with my girlfriend Laylee, called BFGF AFK, where we tackle more, I'd say, non-gaming topics. It's a little more personal. It's an open book show. So if you want to get involved in either of the shows in a deeper manner and support them, keep them on the air, then the Patreon is your place to go just for a few bucks. Skip out on a coffee, support your boys. Karak's Patreon is also in the description down below if you want to flick him a couple of bucks. I highly recommend it as the man is turning out great content. And with all of that, we move on to our first topic of the week, which is about the Game Awards. So Jeff Keighley did a little bit of an AMA for the Game Awards, and the biggest piece of news that came out was that there will be apparently 10 reveals. So the exact quote from Keighley was, "We have a bunch of brand new games being announced at the show. I think there are around 10 new games / projects being revealed if you want to count the things that no one has heard about," Keighley said. So does this get you a little excited for the Game Awards now?
Yeah, that's the only reason I watch them. I think.
A lot of people say that. I remember we had that discussion. Was it? It was 2 weeks ago.
Last year we had a discussion prior to this event.
We did. Yeah, I remember. I think that was the episode you missed, and someone said that, like, I personally don't watch for the awards. I see a lot of people watching for awards, but at the same time, we're more ingrained in things, right? Like, I think people are just more looking to talk about the announcements. What do you think will show its face at the Game Awards in the terms of a reveal? Obviously, it says, he said, stuff that no one's talked about. So what could that be?
Capcom's got a new game.
Resident Evil 3? Or are you talking about the other one? Because I think Resident Evil 3 is
a completely not known game right now. That was the rumor I just heard. Now, again, it was a rumor, but it was like it did pop up again as like that could be at the reveal. So that would be awesome. I would assume Microsoft. I really do feel. It's probably time for Microsoft to maybe unleash a little bit of Fable 4, even if it's just a title screen and here's a dappled glen with the sun beaming down through the trees. So those are the only two really that I would like even hazard a guess, because they say that they're 10 announcements. They didn't say big announcements. It could be like
2 indies, and
Oxenfree 2 or something. Yeah, so it's like you don't know exactly what they mean. I'm sure there'll be at least a couple big ones though that we're not expecting.
I always just like to throw out there like Batman. Just because I want to see them
throwing out there Batman. So do I. Harry Potter, Batman, right?
Yeah, Harry Potter and Batman are always the safe two for Warner Brothers. It's always the safe two. Like, they'll be here one of these shows. We're just going to keep saying it.
Exactly.
It reminds me
we'll be right.
It reminds me of Michael Pachter. He got a lot of traction for his Elder Scrolls 6 predictions for years before Bethesda announced their roadmap, and he said that his tactic was each year I just make the prediction that it's coming next year because it gets attention, but also it just means inevitably I'll be correct at some point in time.
Exactly.
And I'm just
exactly.
Okay, like I get where you're coming from. So I kind of do the same thing with Batman. I'm just like, it'll be there. Yep, it'll be there. Yeah, I think we can expect a presence of maybe Capcom. I think Resi 3 will probably be in State of Play, which we'll talk about in our next news segment. A little bit of a surprise announcement the morning that we record this show. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Game Awards. It's in a short number of days. We'll have reactions on the channel, of course, to maybe a big announcement or two. It doesn't seem like it'll be as relevant to me as it was last year. I mean, Obsidian Entertainment announcing a big RPG there was a pretty big deal, right? So we'll see if anything relevant for my channel comes out of it. It seems like a lot of the big games for next year have already been announced for the first half, and I think we'll see for the latter half at E3 when both
I have a question for
Sony and Xbox show up. What's up?
Why didn't you? Why do you not like Monster Hunter? The new one,
World?
Monster Hunter. Yeah.
No, I like World. I got a lot of time in World, actually. Not like as much as most people. Most people got like 300, 200 hours.
Yeah, wasn't it Fighting Cowboy? I think it was him.
He's
Somebody I was
probably got
talking
way
to.
more than me.
Yeah, he's got way more. But why? Is there a reason? Because I was thinking about like, I don't know. That seems like a game you might dive into to like cover deeper. But is there?
I've been looking for that
because you
for a
said
while.
what matters for your channel. I was wondering what makes the choice against a Monster Hunter, but maybe for.
For me,
something.
I've realized, because I cultivated a large part of my fan base around role-playing games, but predominantly Western ones. And so JRPGs, It's not like they can't work. Like Final Fantasy 15 worked for a little bit. Persona 5 has worked in the past. It's not like they don't work. Because like I said, I do have people who just like RPGs, but it's more so they're more akin to the Western ones. Sadly, in a sense, they get a lot more coverage. So that's why it was really exciting with the Outer Worlds. That was kind of like a more niche one that did work out really well for me. I kind of expected it to, but that's why it sucks that Bethesda sort of sunk Fallout, because that was the main one. That and Elder Scrolls. And Elder Scrolls went away for a while. ESO is more of an MMO, so it's not like your traditional RPG. So it's easier right now just to float between games, which I kind of like that freedom. But I've always said... because I didn't even get this way with Fallout, believe it or not, for a really long while. But I wouldn't mind being like locked in to one game or one franchise for a little bit of time. One that I would care about, like if they did a new KOTOR, and I was just like, just with KOTOR constantly. Obviously, you have to experiment in between there. That's something I've learned. But yeah, it's something I would love, just to be a part of a specific community, not just a broad spectrum of games. I think there's something really fun about that. I always said, like, I want to be a big YouTuber, but at the same time, I think I enjoy more so the interaction with the community and being involved on a deeper level with them. That kind of is more impactful to me and more enjoyable to me.
Gotcha. No, I was just wondering, because for some reason that seems like, I don't know. There's so much, and Iceborne was so big that it dawned on me, like, that might have been something.
Iceborne...
You're a weapon guy, and I was like,
Yeah.
you could have done a weapon guide on that game.
Well, that's the thing. Iceborne is one of those things where I would have loved, like, is that a starting point for someone like me? Because there are people who are already doing Monster Hunter World and do everything about that, and you carry that knowledge into Iceborne. Someone was probably already established in that. That's why it's easier when something's new. Like Kingdom Come Deliverance was a great example. No one was really like heading the charge for that at all. I think it was like me and Elder Scrolls Online guides or something like that. ESO, Fallout, and Elder Scrolls guides. I forgot his name. But like it was just him and I were kind of like up there just talking about this game. No one was really doing it any justice. So it's tough to find them out there because RPGs are so few and far between.
Right.
I'm actually looking at this article from GameSpot right now that can help narrow down some of our predictions. Jeff Keighley said League of Legends is one of the biggest franchises in gaming, and it's coming to the Game Awards next week. Join Riot Forge at the Game Awards for the global announcement of a brand new game. And then also Wolf Eye Studios will be debuting their brand new game at the Game Awards. And I believe they were the people, I'm trying to remember who they were compiled of, but they had some pretty significant heads there on their team. I'm trying to remember. I got to look them up real quick. But
I can look them up. Who is it?
Go for it. Wolf Eye Studios. But go ahead and look them up. See who's with them, because I think that one is the bigger catch, we'll say. Let's see what Karak picks up for us.
So Their website's giving me a bunch of warnings. Arcane. It's former directors of Arcane Studios. That's what it was.
Rafael Colantonio.
And Julian Robbie, Arcane's executive producer. Julian Robbie. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that completely fucked up. But anyway.
Super talented people regardless.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'm very excited to see that. And I'm excited to see Rafael dive back in because he seemed pretty frustrated after Prey. He took a couple of years off for himself, which I think is really good because it shows he has heart because, you're allowed to take care of yourself first.
He was frustrated?
Yeah, absolutely.
With what? How it sold?
I don't know if it was how it sold. I think it was, I don't want to speak for him, so I'm trying to speak lightly. I know he said that there was that issue with him and Jason Schreier because of leaks. He couldn't stand that. I think he was frustrated with the I think was it Bethesda's intervention or the performance of the game. There was actually an interview. I think it was funny enough with Jason Schreier afterwards, where Raphael and him talked and how he kind of needed a break from it. But yeah, I just remember him like venting or being openly frustrated enough where he wanted to step away from gaming for a little bit, and I think that's pretty respectable. Because it shows like, okay, I want to get back to this and go back to where I once was in a mental state, and he cared enough to, it's scary to walk away, especially nowadays where you can walk away and just be forgotten about next week. So good for him on that. Any other thoughts on the Game Awards?
So League of Legends, we did have Carlos on last week on the podcast. He was competitive League of Legends, and now he runs one of the biggest League of Legends like competitive teams. It's interesting, and I would never say if he did, but I'll just say he didn't say anything about a new game. So I'm wondering, do you think that'll be in the esports, or do you think it'll be outside of esports?
Like the game itself?
Do you think the game is going to be them deciding that, like, because here's the thing, why cannibalize yourself? If there's I don't see any signs of them suddenly dying. I could be wrong. Maybe there are signs. Other people can tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm wondering if maybe they're going to try to take all that money, which is an extraordinary amount. What if they were like a Witcher 3 kind of situation where they're like, let's throw it in some title type. It doesn't have to be third person, and put our resources. Like, that would be cool. That would be really
I know
cool.
They announced a bunch of games recently as well.
Yeah, the fighting game and all that.
Yeah, which was really a fighting game, a first-person shooter. And that was really surprising because no one really picked up on it. But they had ran off of League of Legends for like a really, 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 really long time. Like this whole company, all its staff, all the events were like supported by this one huge game. And so to see them branch out, like, is it a sign that they're like, okay, we have enough, let's go other places and make more money? Or was it a sign of like, things are dying down, let's go do something else? It's really hard to gauge because they were probably fine where they were. I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting to see that they'll be there and that they're making more noise in the terms of announcements because they were quiet for so long.
I do have a suggestion, Maddie. Do you know what I think we'll see? I think we'll see the guy who did No Way Out. What was the two-person? A Way Out.
He just posted something the other day about
did he?
Like sound design for his game.
I have some strange. He became such a hit because of that. His I could absolutely see him saying, "Here's the next game from blah blah blah."
Yeah, I'm looking at some comments from Rafael Colantonio because I did want to make sure I could factually support what I had said. And there's a quote from him saying, quote, "Imagine not having a vacation for 18 years," end quote.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that quote.
Yeah, so it seemed like more tired than frustration. So I just wanted to make sure I was correct on that. But yeah, the leaked emails was definitely one of the more funny things to come out of him. So with that being said, we kind of answered one of our patron questions, which was from Mike Fury. He had asked us about our thoughts on some announcements that we'll see in the Game Awards, but also state of play. For example, he said, I'm expecting to see Batman since it's basically been silent. And you and I both, actually, I didn't even read that part of his message. But let's get into state of Play, Karak, because that's going to be another bunch of announcements. So State of Play is going to be on December 10th, this coming Tuesday. It's approximately 20 minutes of brand new game reveals, release date announcements, PlayStation Worldwide Studios updates, and more. Now, one of the more significant things that happened is there was and this could be gamers being gamers, there was a change to I think it was the thumbnail of the playlist for Ghosts of Tsushima. And so people think we're going to finally get an update on that game when it's dropping. Maybe it's coming out in the summer. I wouldn't be surprised if it were a summer game. I think people think it's much further off than it actually is, and I think they want to get that game out before the PS5 drops and enters its hype cycle, we'll say. So, are you excited for State of Play? Hearing that it's coming back. We also heard about a Resident Evil 3 leak through PlayStation Network, which further not only confirms its existence, but that this is a potential landing spot for said announcement.
Yeah, I mean, I do see what you mean by the PlayStation 5 Tsushima thing, because like Phil Spencer said, what was the day before yesterday, he has a Scarlet at his house now. They're fully done, and that was on purpose to Phil has a tendency to poke journalists, and journalists were like, it's not even ready, blah blah blah, and Phil's like, playing it at my house, and you're just like, wah wah. Yeah. It was sort of awesome. But I could see their timing for Ghost being like, let's move it up. I will say this, I'm no way, shape, or form giving State of Play even a second of my attention. They've burned me every time, Maddie. Dude, I have given them my life. I've given them multiple State of Plays, and every time they've failed me utterly. If they do
this one has potential. This one has potential because it's a worldwide studio update.
That means that could mean anything.
It could.
It's an update. Like, we've started working on a game. You're like, Jesus. So I just think 20 minutes. I think Sony has an issue with the 20-minute thing. That's the first thing.
Yeah,
I think
they always try to get there.
Yeah, and I think that they worry about showing something that's too big because it's only 20 minutes, and then they don't show big enough stuff. So if this changes and it's amazing, I'll be excited. I just don't think Warner Brothers also wants to show up at a 4-minute event, because what we're looking at is that'd be 20 minutes. I don't think Batman would be shown there, simply because that also does not allow Batman to, like, they can't do questions. They can't do like a person standing up there congratulating themselves for finally doing it.
Right.
So I don't know. I'll watch everybody else's coverage of it, and if I'm wrong, that'll be amazing. But I've been burned, dude, by the last 4 of these.
You thinking I'm counting? I'm on the same boat as you. I mean, I care enough to pay attention to it, but when I really look back on it, the only announcement I ever cared about from there was just another Final Fantasy VII remake trailer. Like, that was fun to see, but my most fond memory, really, when you break it down, was when we were watching I think it was the first ever State of Play, and you saw like Iron Man, and you're like, oh man, they're really coming out of the gates roaring, an Iron Man game, like this could be great. And then you realize it's VR, which, you know, nothing against VR for those who have paid attention to the show.
But it's not the same thing.
I'm trying to invest in VR, but yeah, like, I'm not buying VR for, you know, on the rail shooter with Iron Man. I mean, I'm not. I like MCU, I like Marvel in general, but I'm not that invested. Does an idea of a potential Ghosts of Tsushima update intrigue you whatsoever? Are you excited for that game? Because did you review Sekiro?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because remember, I liked it. You had some issues with it.
Yeah.
Like, we were sort of at odds.
Just making sure. Because I was going to say, I know for some of my friends, and I don't know if this is like an industry-wide thing, but after they got Sekiro, they're like, yeah, this is going to be hard to top in the terms of combat design.
Oh, interesting. I don't believe that. I side more on your side, where, I mean, I liked Sekiro, but I don't think it had amazing combat that would be hard to top, if that makes sense. So Ghost, the thing about Ghost is, all I know about it is graphics, and then I think we saw one gameplay bit at one time. I think somebody showed it, like a YouTuber, like went to an event or something, if I remember right. And I could be getting Neo mixed up, but I will say this, that's another issue, is that we have a lot of Japanese Dark Souls rip-off style games, all in the same, whatever the term would be, all in the same pocket. So I think this would be a good time for them to show it. And I think Ghost is the one that, at least graphically, people were the most like, what the fuck?
That open world looks so good.
Yeah. And depending on, you know, hopefully it is a good game too, but I would say that one like that would be something that I would be highly interested in seeing. I'm a big fan of Neo, pretty big fan of Sekiro, so like it entices me, but graphics don't anymore. When I see amazing graphics, I'm now starting to do the pull away thing, where I'm like,
You're like, oh, hold on.
Yeah, let's wait until we see some gameplay because I think it's just prudent right now.
Yeah, I agree, because I think we've entered an age where art style can be as powerful as just high-end AAA graphics. And sometimes a good art style, a good art direction can do more for a game.
More
than just paying out the ass for crazy good-looking photorealistic graphics. It's one of those, I feel like it's time to lay the graphics stuff down, right? That's how I've always stood on it, because I feel like that mattered more when we were leaping PS2 to PS3, Xbox to 360. I feel like that was a really significant leap. We should be discussing graphics then. But graphics are great now. Art is great now. It's very few and far between that we find a truly bad-looking game. And even when it looks bad, it's usually like on an animation side of things. Like Mass Effect Andromeda did not look bad. It technically was not good, though, right? And so even in situations where you have the worst of the worst, I feel like the graphic conversation, it's something you should note in a review, but the people who try to sell games on it, I think it's just an age-old tactic, and maybe it works for a more widespread market. I could be completely misinformed on that, or incorrect rather, but I just don't think it's as prevalent as it once was.
I think if it looks unique, it doesn't need to be graphically as impressive as it does need to be or exude something unique, and you can do that without being the best graphics. You absolutely can, and I think you're right. I think it's time where, dude, I was looking at Drive Club. I compared Forza, Drive Club, and Gran Turismo a couple days ago, and I got to tell you, racing in particular, Maddie, the graphics, they are almost like, you're like, dude, this is really close to being real. And one more jump with photorealism in some of these games. I think I would like to see more, improvement on gameplay, improvement on like some new system that comes up. Nemesis was supposed to be that. I don't know if you remember, dude, but I got so tired of reading about the Nemesis system in fucking Lord of the Rings, I wanted to bash somebody over the head.
Well, like because in the sequel, they just tried to like act like it was this new thing when the first one established it, but they
didn't do anything new.
But they didn't really take a leap forward. Like the first one, I see. The thing is I love the idea of the Nemesis system for certain IP. Like,
the idea, for sure.
Because like in a Batman game, I think a Nemesis system makes so much sense.
Right.
I think that would be a very logical carryover in the terms of like resources and assets for Warner Brothers, because it doesn't feel forced. It really fits that detective hero versus villain vibe that a superhero game would have. So I personally sit on the side of the fence that I'd like to see more of it. But yeah, when they were in the marketing cycle, it seemed like that's all they had to talk about.
And do you know a game that failed Nemesis bad was Grid? It just got released as a racing game. And they were like, and I love the idea of Nemesis and racing game. Dude, if you watch true racers, those guys are fucking, there's some animals. There's some straight up animals. And instead, it just turned into a license for the AI to smash you. That's all it completely failed. And so a Nemesis system step up in gameplay, I'm more interested in the graphics. If they figure those kind of things out, and if they adjust gameplay and they add some new gameplay element, like Dark Souls added like realistic combat, or not realistic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
More challenging, whatever.
Gotcha.
It felt like a step forward. It obviously was, because we have 10,000 carbon copies of Dark Souls now. So obviously people thought it was. That's what I'm more interested in, like you said.
I hope we see
graphics.
I hope we see a little bit more of Elden Ring. I'm very excited for that one. I'm very excited for that game. I don't think it'll be at the State of Play.
Me neither.
I think that's more reserved for a Microsoft thing, maybe E3 or more likely the Game Awards, if anything, this year. But I'm really looking forward to that game because it sounds like everything that I love about From Software. I like the idea of these multiple kingdoms, I think it was, and it seems like a more sprawling open world, like a Dark Souls 1, which is my personal favorite of the entire Dark Souls series. That one really just clicks with me on a special level.
Oh, really?
I saw you raise your eyebrows a little bit, Karak. What's up?
You like one better than... Okay, I don't remember now, but you like one better than 3?
Yeah.
So, because I felt 3 fixed a lot of the jankiness of 1.
3's
what did you like? Yeah, what'd you like about 1 better than 3? The world?
I like the interconnected world. I think that's so
Okay.
like crucial to the game's success for me.
It was pretty slick in that first one.
Yeah, it's it wasn't just your typical like we see a lot of games imitate it. Like even Jedi Fallen Order did a little bit. You open the door and there's your
Surge.
bonfire, Surge. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's become a lot more prevalent where you can sort of see that U shape that sort of links
Yeah.
you back to the
Yeah.
original
Yeah.
location, and you're
Yeah.
like, whoa! And each time it doesn't really get old. But I feel like to be the pioneer of that type of world design takes a very special talent, and the way they did it so effortlessly and made it feel believable, and it didn't feel like the map was built around that, right? Like it was just a bunch of
Gotcha.
views, like to the point where you're building a bunch of fucking McDonald's symbols around the map. I thought that it was really great what they did, and it made that grind from like point A to point B, where you finally saw the light at the end of the tunnel, like all the more rewarding. Not that any of the games were missing that. I just think the first time around they did it so well, and then
Yeah.
2 became a lot more disjointed, and I think because of that, you have a game series that doesn't hold your hand, but when you disconnect parts of the game world and you start hopping between bonfires, tons of loading screens just to find out what the hell you're supposed to do, that can lose me as a player a little bit, because there's not holding your hand and then just having like poor game direction, which I think
Yeah.
2 had a little bit of. And 3, I'll admit I didn't play a lot of. I think I played about 6 hours of 3, and I liked what
Gotcha.
was there. I just didn't get hooked quite like I did with the other Dark Souls titles. And Bloodborne, I've played and beat like 3 times, so that I think that game's excellent. It's surprising how hit or miss I think From Software really is for me, because I love Dark Souls 1, but Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, 3 weren't grabbing me. Bloodborne absolutely did, and Sekiro was kind of like, I like this. This is okay, but it's not. This year I kind of made a pledge to myself that if something doesn't grab me after like 10 hours, don't waste your time, because that's more than enough time to find out if you like something.
Yeah, 10. You're generous as fuck. I don't know.
I
if
feel
would
like I
give
have to
10
be.
hours. I would. I mean, there's so many games out there. If something doesn't grab me in 10 hours, I'm probably playing something else.
Yeah, that's what I
That's
do
a
now.
long time.
I used to pump through it, and I still sometimes do. But in the case like a recent example is like Pokemon, I got to 11 hours, and I was just like, fuck this. I'm just gonna get my gameplay, get a video together. It's actually the Patron video I'm recording today, and I'm just like, all right.
Give your thoughts.
Yeah, give my thoughts, because I think, like, for example, that series needs like a Assassin's Creed treatment. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
think I think 10 plus hours alongside all my experience with the rest of this series is more than enough to construct that argument. So yeah, State of Play coming soon, Game Awards coming soon. No questions about either of those. So with that, we move on to topic 3, which is my favorite little news bit of the week. I'll be quite honest, I don't like to play favorites here, but Persona 5 The Royal got a lot of Western details, and we're going to talk about a little bit of them today. For starters, I want to always, as I usually do, gauge your interest, Karak. Are you excited for Persona 5 The Royal at all?
I mean, I spent a lot of time in the original.
I know.
Probably not as much as. And I'm not a huge Persona fan, but I liked 4 and I liked 5. So like, I don't know if I'm too. Yeah, probably not. It would probably take something really unique to cause me to go back.
Okay, so then I think that should lead us right into Mike Fury's question, which is, Persona 5 is great and all, but does the new added content for Persona 5 The Royal really justify the extra money that you have to spend, since you can find Persona 5 for $10 at retail? Now, I always said to people on my channel that if you have Persona 5 in hand, or you have the money and you're ready to play it, just go play this game, because it's such a long investment and the base game is so excellent and well-rounded that I can't say for certain. Maybe the Royal will round everything out even more, and it'll be a much more rich and enjoyable experience. There is a lot of new content being added, and that's what I wanted to go over today. So I went to GameSpot, and they kind of have like a bullet point list of everything brand new coming to Persona 5 The Royal. So some stuff will matter to fans. Some stuff will actually be content that I think matters to more people. And by that I mean, for example, this will matter to fans. There's new openings in music. Now, the opening I don't think is a huge deal for folks, but the music is like a staple in Persona. Like, the music has been very good since it first was on the PS1. It has been a very, very important part of that series. And you can listen to some of the tracks now. Persona 5 The Royal's music is honestly better than Persona 5. It's crazy. They're adding, I think, like 30 plus new songs, 40 new songs, something along those lines. I had made a video about this a number of months ago. There's a new Phantom Thief joining your squad named Kasumi Yoshizawa. That's probably the most significant addition of the game, actually. She's going to be a part of the story. She's originally, at least as far as we know, against the Phantom Thieves. And so to weave a brand new character into the narrative like this is really important. She is a first-year transfer student at Shujin Academy, a highly skilled ballerina or rhythmic gymnast, and you can see her shining down the dance floor with her elegant moves at what looks to be a school social gathering. So I imagine that's how you do meet her initially in the game. What else does this article mention? A new confidant, which is the social links for those who are unaware. Without spoiling anything, the first chapter of the game, we'll say, has a really, really significant moment, and it didn't make sense why there wasn't like a school counselor at all or some type of like relationship with a principal involved. So to help add in that part of the story, they added a school counselor, and Takuto Maruki is going to be that man. He is the brand new addition in the school. Joker now has a grappling hook. There's new content in the palaces, so alongside that grappling hook, palaces will have new content. There appears to be a new puzzle sequence in the first palace you go into. Another screenshot shows a never-before-seen item in a palace, which are collectibles that will give you access to some high-end gear. So there's new things in that way. Hold on, I gotta read this one. Kichijoji, sorry. So you can explore different parts of Tokyo in Persona 5. This is a new part of that. You could go to a large range of them. So this is a new place to hang out. There will be new social links here and whatnot, and new parts of the game there. There's a new hangout spot for everyone called the Penguin Sniper, which is where you can play pool. That ties into social links. Social links are what happen pretty much outside of the dungeons, so that's a really relevant part of the game. Futaba got her own all-out attack. Haru and Morgana have a partner attack. You also meet Haru earlier in the game. You met her in the end of the game in the first one. You meet her on like day one apparently in this game, which is huge. There's a whole brand new palace, and palaces in Persona are like multi-hour expeditions, and they're really well designed. There's a New Year's celebration and a whole new semester. A whole new semester adds easily like 20 hours of gameplay, so keep that in mind. There's a potential human Morgana. There's a social event with Akechi, which is pretty big. You find out more about Futaba's mom, which is another big mystery from the first one. There's apparently a field trip, which was missing in the first one to some extent, we'll say, because you went to Hawaii, but there wasn't much outside of that. You can hang out with the Caroline and Justine from the Velvet Room in the real world. There's additional help to get you through the game, so you can press the touchpad like you could in the first one, and then there's more options for assisting. And there's new enemy types. So sorry that was a mouthful, but I just kind of wanted to get the point across that this isn't like... A lot of people just look at it and go, oh, they added 2 words to the end of Persona 5. Right. How dare they sell the game again? But as I read, and obviously the reviews that are already out in Japan kind of speak to the fact that it adds a ton of new content. It is a fully fledged game, and it's very, very good looking. And I'm super excited to get my hands on it. So with that new smorgasbord of information, Karak, you're kicking back, you look relaxed. Are you just blown away by this information? Are you excited now?
No. But no. The thing is that's cool is that's only because I liked Persona 5. Mm-hmm. If I felt like it was missing a bunch of shit, this would excite me. Like if any of what you missed, if I was like, oh, fucking Joe Blow didn't meet blah, blah, blah on this certain day, then I think this would be much more interesting. So if you like Persona 5 or haven't played it at all, I think this works.
Yeah,
and then if you're in the middle ground, it probably doesn't do much.
I agree, because I sit on the side of the fence. At first, when the Royal was announced, I was excited. Then my friends were like over the top, like, it's happening. And I'm like, hold on, it's a re-release, okay? Like, let's relax. And I couldn't get that level of hype, because for me, it's like, because you brought up a good point on how, if there was something missing, I would be more excited, because it would be addressing something. where this is more so adding to an already great package, which is another good thing. But
Very much so.
I think of a game I've been playing on the Switch called the Caligula Effect Overdose. Now, the original launch was the Caligula Effect, and it came out on the Vita. I don't know if it came out anywhere else, but this game was sort of stranded on this platform. It had a lot of good ideas. It was held back in a number of ways, like poor dungeons, not as streamlined mechanics. And so this new entry sort of fixed a lot of things. It's still a little rough around the edges. I'm about 12 hours in. But it's one of those things where I was going to play the Caligula Effect end of last year or middle of last year. Someone recommended it to me while I was streaming. They were like, hey, if you like Persona, you're going to like this game. And then the Overdose version got announced, which addressed all those things. And I was like, I'm going to wait for that because, it's going to fill in those things that were already missing. And it came to PS4. I don't know if it came to Xbox, but it came to Switch. So, yeah, I think that was more exciting. And I think it's a similar situation there of a re-release. And that's why there's this back and forth battle in the Persona community. Like, some people are like, just go play the vanilla game. Some people are like, wait for the Royal. And I really think it depends on time because both these games are huge time sinks. And if you're adding more content to Persona 5, the Royal, that is insane. Like, that was already one of the biggest games that's released in the last number of years. And they're going to add more to it. It's like, if you value your time and you got $10 and you have Persona 5, just play it because it's like a 100+ hour game. So you're going to be spending a lot of time with it. And if you wait until the beginning of next year when 1,000,001 games are coming out, something will probably scoop you up like 30 hours in.
Yeah, if there was something wrong with 5, I could see like me getting interested. But I personally felt 5 it nailed almost every. Like there's not a lot I was unhappy. Well, Morgana. There's not a lot I was unhappy with.
So see, that's the thing. I haven't heard word about that, but I wonder if they addressed that.
Well, I thought the rumor was that she was supposed to bother you less.
That's what I had heard too. I'm hoping so.
That's awesome. But again, I mean, I was pretty happy with that game. There's if you reverse this game and pretend it's not this one and it's Outer Worlds, which I also liked. If you said Outer Worlds was going to have a new character, a new small location, a new story, blah blah blah, but it's $60, but it's basically the same thing with just a bunch of added. Would you buy it again? No. I wouldn't. I would wait for a sequel, and I would have no problem with somebody buying it, or no problem with somebody saying, the base game I got, and there was a bunch of stuff I liked. More is great, but I'm not going to re-experience it all just for whatever additions they've had.
Right.
And I think either or, there's probably not somebody who's going to have a bad experience. If you're going to have a bad experience with Persona 5, it's going to happen regardless, is what I'm saying. It won't matter which version you have. If you are going to have a bad experience, it would happen on either one. It's this is just icing on the cake kind of thing.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it though. So that's coming out March 31st alongside the announcement of all that information I just brought to you guys. There's multiple versions of the game. All DLC from Persona 5, like its original launch, will be packed into this, so you'll have that for free. Persona 5's DLC was like notoriously overpriced as far as I'm concerned. And Persona 5 The Royal is adding its own new batch of DLC. So, for example, you'll be able to play as like the chibi characters from Persona Q2, which just came out on the 3DS. That'll be interesting. You could play as like Persona 4's main protagonist, Persona 3's main protagonist. So that'll be interesting. That adds a little bit of flavor. It doesn't change how the game plays necessarily, but it'll change the music too. They add stuff that's fan servicey, but it's not really that well priced. But if you buy I think it's the Ultimate Edition for $100, you can get all of that plus like a PS4 theme and different stuff. I'm not a huge fan of how they're setting it up because you can spend $90 and get the Phantom Thieves edition, which comes with like a Joker mask that you can like put on a stand. It comes with like an art book, a collectible box. It comes with stuff that you'd actually have or see. Right. And I think it's more value for your dollar ultimately. So there's a lot of ways to purchase the game. Atlas, for all their flaws with how I think they price the DLC, do price their collector's editions incredibly fair. Big fan of how they do that. And so any additional thoughts on Persona 5 before we move on?
No, I wonder when a 6 is going to be announced, though.
No, it won't be for a... Well, actually, you know what? They did say it won't be as long of a gap between 4 and 5. And I think
how long was that?
Persona 4... Well, do we want to go back to 4 Golden, or do you want to go back to the original launch of 4?
Just go to 4 to 5 original. How long was that?
9
Was
years.
that like, oh, for fuck's sakes. Wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Was it really?
Persona 4 was 2008. Golden was a remaster on the Vita. That was 2012.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Damn.
And that's the other thing. A lot of people complained about Atlas like re-releasing this, and I would understand that in today's day and age, but they have actually like been the originators of doing re-releases. They did it with Persona 3, which was like mid 2000s. They did it with Persona 4, as I just mentioned. Now they're doing it with 5. I think it'll be another couple of years till we see 6, because they just did Persona Q2, which includes some of Persona 5 characters. They still have to do a Persona 5 Arena, which is eventually going to happen. And when it does, I will scream. So I think, because Atlas does spin-offs very well. They did the Dancing All Night, the Dancing Moon Night, Dancing Starlight. So I think they just have one more spin-off game to check off on the list before they move on to 6. The issue was that people didn't mind 4. It's just that 4 got, I don't want to say milked. It was around for so long that people got tired of it. They were ready for a new cast. And I understand why entirely. So I think Atlas should just keep the cycle rotating. Get to 6 within 2 years, you'll be fine. All right. Now, Karak, we'll move on to topic number 4 about your favorite human in the industry. Can you guess who that is?
My favorite human in the industry?
Yeah, besides me.
Dude, now I'm so confused. No, I have no clue.
Hideo Kojima.
Oh, okay. So I thought that is who I thought. Okay, good. All right. I did sort of understand why you might say that, but I wasn't 100% sure. Okay, continue.
So he just said recently that in an interview with Vulture, he discussed the possibility of working with Norman Reedus again, and that if he did a sequel to Death Stranding, that if he were to start such a project, Kojima would, quote, start from zero, end quote. What that would presumably mean is that the second game wouldn't continue any plot points from the first game. Perhaps the 2 games would share a connected universe, but that would really be it. Aside from the possible Death Stranding 2, the interview also reveals why Kojima added online components to the game. After watching Martin Scorsese's 1976 film Taxi Driver, Kojima realized that people all over the world felt the loneliness that he did as a kid. That feeling of wanting to alleviate loneliness led to the social strand system. So I like how he dug deep for that one. I can always appreciate his transparency. This is why I added this indirect online connection in the game, so that people will feel it's all right, it's okay, Kojima told Vulture. You're relieved that you're not alone. You see other people's footprints and think it's not just me here. So I think while that's very touching, I think the more significant talking point for us is going to be starting from zero with Death Stranding. And we'll go all over the place with this conversation. How do you feel that maybe in a sequel to Death Stranding, we don't really know how well it's sold yet as far as I'm aware. I'll have to double check that real quick.
It did not sell incredibly well. It was
I saw it wasn't that great in Japan, but
it was there was a guy who tracks numbers on US Twitter, and he was saying that like it was well below Days Gone. Well below. Like
Days Gone was really successful though.
Well, for a PlayStation 4 title, neither one of them broke the bank.
Yeah. I think Days Gone was like more known success,
and it was zombies, which sell themselves. But.
True. So, how do you feel about Death Stranding 2 starting from zero? I like the idea because I think what Death Stranding maybe offered people seemed pretty interesting, solid. But I think what ultimately folks needed was more gameplay in between. And if you start from zero, you can build off of what you already established, separate the universe a little bit, and I think kind of hit a soft reset, essentially. Although this might just be a one-off. I wouldn't be too surprised if it were.
I wouldn't be surprised if it pulled a Silent Hill.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because Silent Hill really does. I mean, other than the location, they have a lot of weird, some bad guys don't show up. They, like there isn't always an overarching like connection between the Silent Hill games. I could absolutely see like Death Stranding just sort of like there's Norman again, but he's a different character, and you're doing something different, and him never explaining it. And then you have to go like, oh, is it like
Does
reincarnation?
Silent Hill do that? Like same characters, but
No, I'm saying Silent Hill does the thing where they're just like there's only one or two connections between games. The location.
Okay. I was gonna say I don't know if I've ever seen a game do that.
Yeah,
where they just go to different entries, but it's the same actors and actresses.
No, but funny enough, you mentioned that movies have done it. There have for sure been movies where an actor has shown up in a sequel, but he's a completely different person. And you are left, for example, a TV show that does it, Battlestar Galactica. Now, most people think they did it because of what the entire crux of the story is, but they did some prequels, and they would have characters just sitting there, and you were like, that guy's from the show, but now he's in this prequel movie, and he's like 20 years old in both, but they're like 80 years separated. So what's going on? Where the other character who's in both is 60 years older.
Interesting.
So you get, it was pretty crazy because you would see a lot of overlap there. So I could, it would not surprise me if Kojima's just like, hey, I like working with Norman. Let's make up another story and, have some general connections to it. Remember, Alan Wake has connections to Control. Control has connections to Quantum Break. I don't see anything stopping him from doing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Yeah,
this is actually a very sad interview.
I did read the interview. It was very sad.
It's here's another one. On the topic of his parents, Kojima also reveals that he didn't tell his mother that he started his own studio and was making Death Stranding. I thought I'll tell her once I become a little successful, he said. I didn't want to worry her. Unfortunately, Kojima's mother passed away during the game's development, so he never got to tell her, which he regrets. Right? Like, that's so sad. Oh man. I can't even imagine. The ghosts in the game, maybe my parents are one of them seeing me in this world, he said to Vulture. I wanted to have that kind of metaphor that within you're connected to the people that passed away. Very touching interview.
Whatever.
Whatever?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not a big auteur fucking fan. Like, I'll see people in movies talk about, that kind of stuff. And be like, this character in the movie might be a spiritual representation of my fucking ghost cat. And like, fuck off.
You think it's almost like superficial to
it's
say?
That, if it's not, that's what, dude, you need to get outside. If it's not, that's like signs of a depression and shit like that scare me more than anything about the game. Like, that kind of stuff and he did. I think it's more along the lines of like probably drawing connections later on, as because he even says maybe. So I don't necessarily attribute to him saying when I was making the game I was thinking this ghost, because obviously his mom passed away while he was making the game.
Sounds like he's coping. I can understand that certainly.
Yeah.
It lends you a little bit of feeling connected to someone through his own creation. So I understand personally why he would say something like that. There isn't really anything else in the term. I'm kind of surprised after delving deeper into multiple articles to talk about this story. It was one of the talking points I wanted to address is that it seems like the media likes to make a story out of kind of nothing, because like I'm seeing like articles like Hideo Kojima teases what's next after Death Stranding, but literally it was just like one sentence about how he said he would start from zero. And that's all these articles have offered. Kojima will start from zero. And that's it. And it's like, how do you make a story out of that? It's such a little blur.
Do you want to know something so crazy? I have a news app on my cell phone, and occasionally I'll read it when I'm working out or read it like out on the deck. And no lie, a couple days ago, I'm sure you don't follow this, but it's been in my news. Justin Timberlake goes out and he was drunk and he had his hand on a girl's knee. This has been news for like 3 days because he's married.
I did see that.
And then yesterday, no lie, it says pictures leak of whatever her name is, his wife, as rumors of Justin Timberlake continue. And no lie, that was the story. Pictures of her walking down a street had become the news. That was it. Leaked. And that's where gaming journalism is like, look, it's so shallow that, for example, I would have talked more if I was writing a story and I read this stuff. I would have talked more about the depression and like coping mechanism, blah blah blah, than teases, because he didn't tease anything else. That's another thing. The wording, that verbiage is actually incorrect factually. Yeah. Because he did not tease anything else whatsoever. There was no tease there. There's no indication of a tease. But we're at that point, man. We're at the point when TMZ has more data than any of the websites that cover news anymore on games. And that, it depresses me. Polygon does it too. Like, it's not the only one, it's just, it's sad. There's actually a story there, for instance, like, if I had talked to him about that, my next question would be, now, as long as he's okay with it, you ask him, but it'd be like, do you think your next game will have a connection with your mother? Or would you ever use that? I would like to know, it seems pretty heartfelt. Is that something you wouldn't put in a game because that's your own cherished personal moment? Or do you think you might cope by putting something like that in a game now that she has passed away? There's in-depth conversation there that never happens. It fucking never happens.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. It sucks that the media is always the one who has to like be the deliverer of information, because it can get skewed so easily, and it kind of leads to that, like, which site do I go to, which site do I trust? Because no one's immune to mistakes, and no one really complains about that, but it's more so the exaggeration and making non-story stories, and then it turns into the story is that it's a non-story. I think it's a talking point,
especially because he's pretty interesting story. Like, if you got him to do an interview, you should fucking ask some questions. I don't mean hard-hitting, by the way. Nobody's fucking, I hate that shit. You don't need to get personal unless they do, and then go on that route and see if they want to talk about it, because then you can find stuff out and go, now I get why. For example, his games have a tendency to go fucking everywhere. And he's explained, I think, to most people's, satisfaction, of why his cutscenes are so long, for instance. Even though I don't like him, he's described, I think, there's no real reason to
times.
There's no, right? And so this is something where it's like, oh, he explained this. Whether I agree with the particular wording of, like, his mom and stuff, I would have asked a question there to get clarification. Go, are you saying it is? Or are you saying that's hope? Because to me, if he's saying it's hope, then you could say, well, would your next game happen to be about hope? Because he does dire games. He does dire as shit fucking games. Every game is about nuclear war and people dying and fucking the end of everything and military, private contractors and babies. Well, this last one's just babies. Babies in a wasteland. So it's like, hey, do you think now might be the time to do a game that is based on not solitary, loneliness, but on something more positive? Because he's somebody who could do it, I think.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, we'll see if the media improves in due time, and we hope Kojima is doing all right.
Yeah, for sure, because he seems like I may fucking be confused about half of the shit he does, but he's never okay, he can appear a little auteur, like Americans don't understand. It's just like some of them are your biggest fans. But I think overall he seems like just a genuinely, like, I want to make some games kind of guy. So that's what I would like to have. Those are pretty special people.
Certainly. We must protect and preserve that foundation. Yeah. All right. That's the end of the news, and now we get into our patron questions for the week. Karak and I were talking before the show, and we noted that in general, things have just been slow. So we don't have this overload of patron questions like we normally do. In fact, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions this week. So let's start it off. I'm sorry, 6, 7. A little bit of a difference there. Pretty good. AC Denton has our first question. Thoughts on publishers re-releasing a game on a different platform but keeping the full price tag? I find it insane that Rockstar released Red Dead Redemption 2 on Steam at €55 and €80 for the Ultimate Edition when they made more than enough from its initial release and only ported it to PC. Now, I think the verbiage there is only ported it to PC. I don't know how hard a port is.
Well, you mean... Okay, I thought, so he's saying that they shouldn't charge full price if it was on consoles and then switches to PC?
Yes.
Oh, fuck that.
Thoughts on publishers re-releasing a game on a different platform but keeping the full price tag?
Yeah, why not? Like, that doesn't... I mean, well, first of all, porting can be insanely difficult.
Especially for a Rockstar game.
Especially for a PC game where you probably there is no real end all be all for testing all the configurations, and even they still got it wrong. You'd have to go talk to somebody who handles, ports and stuff. But one of the biggest issues also is that, you're up-resing things, you are reworking textures. Who knows how much they want to rework? I don't think there's anything so if I release something on cassette back in the day, even if I didn't do anything, I would still release it for the same price on vinyl, even if it was a year later. And then in the future, if I released it on a digital platform, my audio CD, dropping hot mixes, I would sell it. I would sell it for full price if I released it on a different audio platform the next year. I don't think we should be. That's assuming their effort, and that is fucked up. That's almost like somebody telling me I can't do a video review on something because I probably didn't work hard enough to ask for people's clicks. There is an assumption of effort there that is really egotistical that I find disturbing. At some point, dude, how are we even understanding their level of input or their level of output? I don't know. I think the system's perfect. They rate it or they sell it at a certain price, and they get fucked over if we don't think it's worth that price. To me, that's free market, man. That's how you do things. You're like, fuck you, this game's not worth $60 on PC. Which, by the way, for a lot of people, it isn't.
Yeah. I don't think I can add anything to that. I think you said it perfectly. I don't think I can add a single thing to that other than...
Maybe it's talking about, ignoring that, Maddie. What about...
I guess some people look at re-releases and they think it should add features, and they don't consider, like you said, the effort that some ports will take. That's why I tell... It also is the date of the game. For example, they port KOTOR 1 and 2 to PS4, Xbox One. I don't think that's a $60 product. It probably is not easy to port those games
to what? I'm sorry.
To the Xbox One and PS4.
Okay.
So they're getting them from these old systems to these new ones. I think time and age plays a factor in the willingness to pay. Red Dead is new. It just got ported a year after launch to A, reinvigorate sales. Let's not act like Rockstar isn't doing that. But also B, I don't think it's a simple port. Not that KOTOR is an easy port, but that those games have been around for so long. They are accessible on a lot of platforms. And you're just adding another option on a place to play, which I guess you could simplify any port to. But point being is that I think the age plays a factor where I would see a KOTOR package being like $40. It's going to cost some money because they did take time to do it. They had to touch them up. They do want to profit off of it. So I would see that being a $40 price tag. But when it comes to something like Red Dead, I understand why a brand new game, I shouldn't say brand new, but recently released port would sit around the $60 range. I'm sorry, it should be $50, right? Because it's on Steam. So it should be around $50, which is, I don't think that bad. But, it's also, you got to remember, Rockstar is probably pricing this at the point of, are you buying it again or are you playing it for the first time? And I think a lot of people who are buying Red Dead Redemption 2, if they're buying it again, let's be honest, the game's great, but it's not super replayable. They're probably huge fans of the title and they want to support it. That's fine. Or they don't have an Xbox One and PS4 and waited for this, where they probably would want to pay that price. And to be honest, that game was my game of the year last year. It is well worth that money. I would hands down throw my cash at that again. It is very good.
It's very good. Yeah, I think the difficulty here is, imagine two people win a race and I just magically decide that one guy doesn't have to work out as hard as the other guy so he doesn't get his gold medal. And to me, that is the assumption of effort becomes really difficult to prove, if not impossible to prove. I'm not saying you can't think that, but to me, I am much more in the light of, first of all, like you just said, if it's a brand new game to somebody, it's a brand new game to somebody. Like you can't magically pretend because you played the PS4 version that somebody else did. If they didn't, and it's their game, they're experiencing it for the first time, that's their experience. What they should do is rate it on their money, because everybody's money is different. Everybody's output at their job to get the amount of money to spend on something. And if they don't think it's worth 60, that's how you repay Or that's how you inform the company. You inform the company that their pricing is wrong, not via an imaginary line you drawn in the sand for the amount of effort, but put a line in the sand for the amount you'll pay and say this. And I think it speaks to what you just said with KOTOR. If KOTOR was 60 and looked identical, do you know what I would do? You would look at all other games right now and you'd be like, okay, this is not worth 60.
Yeah.
But I have no clue, because guess what? What if they lost the source code and they just remade KOTOR but made it look like that? You don't know. And remake, by the way, that is basically programming a full game all over again if you lose the source code, which we've seen a couple titles do.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, so I then could say, oh, it's a port, they don't deserve any money, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you don't know what they did internally. It's too risky, man. It reminds me too much of what you and I do. It reminds me way too much of what you and I do, because I've had people act like that towards me, and I'll be like, man.
Yeah, think of like sponsorship offers. You know, a lot of people just assume we sit here and collect a paycheck. But the only time I would take a sponsor, what's funny enough is I was joking on Twitter a little bit, and people have actually been tagging them. But Chipotle is like, at anyone who wants a Chipotle sponsorship. And I was like, hey, if our show will ever be sponsored by anyone, why the fuck wouldn't we do Chipotle?
What? Hell yeah.
Like, yo, imagine us breaking the show. You know, we're about 30 minutes deep. We break the show for 2 minutes and talk about a menu item of the week. How fucking awesome would that be?
Cut to us eating burritos and spreading that shit on there.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all, I think. And it's something we believe in. But a lot of people assume the worst and say that we're just collecting a check. And like, truth is, if we were sponsored by anybody, we are collecting a bit of a check. But most creators, you can gauge morally and know where they're at. And I at least think for our channels, respectively, we've refused so many sponsorship offers, so much money on the table that could have put a roof over our heads for months, or kept the lights on for months, or removed any financial worry for months, at the sake of just, literal months. That's not an exaggeration. Like, some companies, you know, without getting into details, will slap like thousands on the table and be like, make a video. It's like,
if a company that started with the letter T and ended with the letter T and was from China, let's say, contacted me, it would probably be 10 grand for a single video. I'm just guessing. It's never happened, for sure.
They pay a lot more than I think a lot of people realize. And I don't say it as a flex, because obviously, as a lot of you guys know, I don't take sponsorship offers at this point in time. I'm not as ignorant to them as I once was, but I don't take them because it's very hard to find a quality one with the right product. And then you have to settle on a good deal for both sides, where you're not getting greedy and demanding too much, and they're not paying out the ass too much. It is because they're like, what's your rates? And I'm like, well, and I've had companies who are like, okay, perfect, we'll pay you. And I've had companies who straight up contacted me. I gave them my rate, and they were just like, yeah, we're gonna move on, and like, we're probably not gonna circle back to you. That's how they straight up were like that. It was a pretty reputable company too, and I was like, okay.
Well, remember, I was told I wasn't extreme enough to be Monster Energy drinks.
Some of these people are pretty cutthroat, because I cycled back. I was like, hey, what if I reneged my rates? And they're like, no, sorry. I was like, okay.
Oh, then fuck off. Then,
I was like, you guys can kiss my balls.
You should have looked into it and been like, what could the guest be? But I will say to Ace, I think it was AC Denton, if he has a better example of, or like, I'd like to know where the thought process comes from. So if he has a better example next week, we can cover it next week. But at least so far from what I've heard, I would not want to guess. I would rather reflect on the final product. But that's my channel. I mean, somebody else may not be like that.
All right. Next question. Good question. Comes from Paul, formerly Dimples. What are your favorite movie soundtracks? It can be licensed music or the score for a movie. I'm curious to know. My personal favorite is Baby Driver, which, if you haven't seen, is pretty much a 2-hour music video, and my favorite Edgar Wright movie.
So what's our favorite soundtrack?
Favorite movie soundtrack, or it could be a score, and
a movie?
Just, man, asking these sophisticated movie questions. I'm just going to pick like the first Spider-Man movie, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. I think that one had a pretty significant soundtrack that kind
Danny Elfman, right?
I wouldn't even know.
Yeah, Danny Elfman. He's married to Bridget Fonda. He did Men in Black. The weird, goofy startings. You're talking about the Tobey Maguire ones.
Yeah. The first one has a lot of So I think
I'll check that. Now I'm interested in that Spider-Man.
That one's always stuck with me. I feel like, there's very few products, even in gaming, where I like look at the thing and I can hear a sound, right? Like, how sometimes people say like GIFs that you can hear because you'll see the GIF and like it just the scene plays in your head and you know exactly how it goes. Very few movies I'll look at on a shelf and they'll evoke that sound. Ninja Turtles, like the original old Ninja Turtles movie, that one I'll have some like music play in my head when I see it, but I wouldn't call that like a best score by any stretch. A classic for sure, but not
for me, it's for sure Tron Legacy, which was the second Tron movie. It didn't do as good as the first one, but it's got not Dead Mouse, the other one, the two dudes with the helmets. The two techno guys with the helmets. Oh my god, I
don't
can't
like
remember
Tron at all because of Kingdom Hearts 2, so I couldn't.
Oh, gotcha. But it has a very cool moment, which I talked to the composer about, which is the two characters are walking towards the camera and the techno beat is going with their footsteps. Those kind of things really intrigue me because they hook me visually and audibly at the same time. And
like
it's got
like
this
a machine in sync.
Yeah, and it's got this amazing like doom doom, like techno beat with it. And I like synth anyway. I like the Ron Janke's kind of stuff. So
gotcha.
Yeah, I would say that. And then Lord of the Rings is a fucking classic.
Oh wow, holy crap! Yeah, how did I forget that?
Dude, Lord of the Rings, the first one is like legit blow your hair back the first time you hear it. You're just like, they fucking nailed the soundtrack. So
yeah. I don't know how I forgot that one. That might take the cake instead. Holy shit.
It's good.
Yeah, holy crap. Ben Jam with our next, we'll say statement. Fill in the blank. Man, blank sounds really good right about now. Food, drink, video games, etc. What sounds good for you right now?
A burrito.
Oh man, you're really cashing in here.
I'm a Chipotle. Let's Chipotle. Bring me that money. No,
yeah.
I'm hungry, man. I can't eat carbs right now, so it's like
really?
I can have like a steak, and it'll take a couple days. But right now I'm carb like starving.
I feel you. See, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. My diet was really strict, and since my life has been like really fucking chaotic lately, I've just like I haven't been able to exercise as much. And when sometimes you don't get to exercise as much, and like your chest will get tight, your leg will get tight.
Yeah, I feel like shit.
Yeah, and I just feel like my body just feels like it's crumbling down, even though it's actually not. I'm just like stiff from not having as much normal motion in a given day as I normally do, and I've just been sitting in my chair a lot, which isn't good. So for me right now, some exercise sounds really good right about now.
Break the crust off. That's
saying way to say it.
The joints get crusty, things feel creaky, and you get to lube that shit up by moving it around.
It's so true though. Like this side of my chest here is just, I don't want to say tight, but it's just, I feel like a strain, and I just need to move. And I was actually, when I was going to get my water, like when I bent over to pick it up, like I could feel it in my left hamstring. Like it's just tight from sitting in a chair for like multiple hours each day. So I would love to get back to exercising, hopefully tonight. If not, we start tomorrow morning on my day off. Natural Calamity has a question. Do you see sequels as a cop-out, a way for developers to limit their creativity and continue the same story? Hell to the no, Natural Calamity. Hell to the fucking no. Because those are bad sequels that you're talking about.
Yeah, I feel like we're coming off as negative, and I want to apologize and make sure people don't know we're not. But guys, I mean, dude, I've written 3 novels. My second novel, was it a cop-out? Nope. It was because I want to continue the story on something. Sure, we do see bad sequels. But, I mean, we've also seen incredible titles that are the second title of something.
Like, let's think of a series that came out kind of flat, and then a sequel amended a lot of what made it popular, right?
Call of Duty. Call of Duty 1 was okay, but sequels in particular, because those came out, and then Call of Duty Modern Warfare, it blew it out of the... Like, it was so far better. And people might think that it's a long series, but that is what happened, is that one came out and got people reoriented back on it.
We'll talk about a recent one, Persona. Persona was kind of like,
sort of
Western
meandering.
semi-popular. It was sort of popular in the West. And then 5 happened, and then they made it into Smash, and now they're like selling more than ever. And they just announced like how many global units they've sold, and it's like an incredible number for a JRPG franchise. Like these entries are not only because like it seemed relevant for what they were doing, and it probably as a business was making them money, but there have been franchises that weren't cash cows that have returned just because this is an art-driven industry. Let's look at
Yakuza 2.
There we go.
Very much so. If we hadn't had a Yakuza 2, of course we wouldn't have 3 or 4, but we truly wouldn't. Because the Yakuza 1 had issues. It was still good, but it was like, it didn't, like, you know, there was still some stuff that needed to be fixed.
What about, like, Vampire the Bloodlines, or Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1 and 2? Like, you know, that's something that I can guarantee from a business standpoint was probably like, dude, we're not going to make a lot of money on this. You know that, right? And it's like, well, we want to fucking make it, you know, and that's it. And a lot of these sequels are creatively driven. And I feel like, you know, like this question could like tie into reboots. Like, are reboots just excuses to remain in the same brand, but and limit creativity, but just like keep making money? It's like you don't get a God of War if you don't reboot, right? You just don't get something like that.
Oh, you mean a structural and story-based reboot like God of War did? Yeah, dude, God of War is a little bit like Darksiders Genesis, where like it completely did a different genre overall.
Well, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. God of War... Was God of War a reboot? Because there are parts... There's
God
like
of War is
scars
a structural... It is not God of War 4.
Okay, because there's like scars on Kratos' body that represent things that happened, we'll say, at the end of God of War 3. And maybe they're just saying
that
like,
is
this
true.
happened in this universe. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm pretty sure he said it was some kind of reboot. Maybe he just meant a reboot of his of like the structure of the game. But there's other I mean, dude, like
soft reboot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In the terms of gameplay and partially in story due to a new setting and a decent time skip since the original game.
Oh, so technically though, chronologically it is in line somewhere. Okay.
Sorry. I was incorrect in a sense.
That's good to know.
But yeah, I think these sequels can help a lot.
Yeah, and also I have no problem with not doing a sequel. There's a term called zero-sum game. And zero-sum game technically means if you win, I lose. That would be sort of the easiest way to describe it. And that is not how games work. What I mean by that is if you get a sequel and it does well and somebody says, I wish they worked on a new IP because it would be better, there is no indication whatsoever that the new IP would be better. None. Yeah. And there's no indication that that they were harmed or anything like that. And as sooner we get away from that kind of thought process, I honestly think the sooner we get away, the more less developers would hold on tight to some stuff. Because I do think that the persona of the public causes some of the issue too. Shut up, dog.
All right. Next question comes from Mike Fury, and it is directly for you, my friend. Karak, what crazy thing would you like to see the Darksiders franchise do next?
That's a good question. Oh, I know. Absolutely would love to see a full-on RPG from.
Oh, really? Yeah, I can see that.
I would love to see a full-on RPG from them. I think their world is, and I'm not even a huge Darksiders fan, but I like watching the stories and understanding Genesis and understanding all the different stuff. That would be really cool to have some world event that comes in and shocks everybody and have that be your character or whatever. Even if the main horsemen are the bad guys or something. Yeah, that'd be very cool.
Yeah, I can get in line with that.
By the way, did you see Gwent is shutting down on the consoles? That was crazy.
I'm not surprised.
Why? I don't understand. So I'm the only one surprised. It's brand new.
I just because I read the earnings call and they said for CD Projekt Red, they were like, yeah, Gwent is still like a small part of our business. It remains profitable. I'm like, okay, so something's making them money, and I doubt people are like playing Gwent on their consoles. So when they said they're shutting it down, I'm like, oh, everyone's playing on their phones. Does it make sense to remove support for one place to get someone in? I don't know, but it wasn't really like a shocker.
Okay.
Not like I'm not saying you were shocked, but I guess for me, I was like,
oh no, I was shocked.
Really?
I was.
No, I want to know why.
Because Gwent just released. It's not very old, and if it was another company, I can guarantee you there'd be 55 stories on PC Gamer saying these guys have decided to cut all funding for this platform. I guarantee you $100 million right now that would happen if it was any other developer. And the fact
there's
that
like a partial to CD Projekt Red, let's be honest.
of course, yeah. And I was just really surprised because I didn't see that. So then I took it a different way and was like, oh, I'm the only one surprised. And I was in my group. But I was trying to figure out, for example, it can't cost a ton to keep it running. It really can't. So to me, removing it is a lot. That is basically what we would chide another developer for. The honest truth, if it was anybody else, I personally feel we would have multiple stories where people are like, so-and-so is abandoning the platform. That's because how old's Gwent, Maddie? How old's Gwent? A year on consoles?
It's been yeah. I mean, they're like just kind of. I think they just realized it was too late, and they probably shouldn't have even bothered in the first place.
Maybe so.
All right, let's see here. We got another question that we kind of talked about already, but let's just make sure we cover all the bases for Mike Fury. He asked, do you guys think that Kojima is saying that he will do a Death Stranding prequel, kind of like Red Dead Redemption 2, or is he being vague for the fuck of it?
Oh, I don't think he knows.
Yeah, I don't think he knows either.
Right?
And I don't think he'd use the verbiage Death Stranding 2 unless he had sequel, like continuation in some way, shape, or form in mind. I feel like because I believe that Rockstar had a different name for Red Dead Redemption 2 before announcing it, and then they changed it just because it's like, oh, brand recognition. I can't think of many other games in a franchise that went 2 before the first. There's usually like Red Dead Redemption : it's like a subtitle. That's usually kind of what represents a prequel. So I don't think he'd use the word, or the number rather, 2, if he meant prequel. But also, I don't think he knows. This one just released a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like, damn, let the guy have his fucking, some crumpets, tea and crumpets, sit back and fucking,
This is why he's stressed.
Yeah, let him have some whatever he eats and watch a TV show or two. Jesus. Give it some time.
He also asked a side question if we can do a Halo Discord event. Now, I don't know if you're talking about like Master Chief Collection or Halo Reach, or you mean let's wait for the new Halo, but I'm down. I haven't played Halo in a while.
Yeah, Halo's a blast. Reach has an audio issue. Hopefully they fix it. It's horrendous audio. Worse than Skyrim Special Edition by about 8,000 times. Wow. Dude, go look online. Like, it's like when they talk, and the guns are all muffled to about negative 15 dB. So when you fire a gun, it'll be all
That's weird.
It's bad, yeah. And they knew about it. Bonnie Ross said, or somebody was tweeting me, because I bitched about it. I was like, how did this ever get released? And they were like, you think that's bad? I was in the beta flights, and we told them over a year ago about it, and they still haven't fixed it. But yeah, those are great games. Halos are a blast in a community. Just like
I know. I had a live stream years ago. I think it was like 2015. People will remember I had like what was called a Halo night, and I had like a bunch of viewers just join my game and just shoot each other up. It was so fun. It was so much fun.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. All right, last question goes to Natural Calamity. With more and more games coming out every year reaching back, do you see game preservation becoming more of a thing? And what ways do you think they could preserve games for the future generations to come? When looking forward, what games would you require... he's got 2 questions. When looking forward, what games would you require your future kids to play so they would have close to the same experience with games as you did, obviously? So we'll start off with question 1. With more and more games coming out every year reaching back, do you see game preservation becoming more of a thing? I think the best way to preserve games is right now fucking limited run games. They're giving like indies just a way to, or Kickstarter games a way to become physical. And we're seeing a physical launch for Divinity Original Sin 2 on the Switch that's getting like a 50-page manual, which is really awesome.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
for the Nintendo Switch. And I really want to get it, even though I don't want to wait till like, I think it's April that it's coming or something like that. But still, I kind of want to get it to support them because they're a great company doing great things. Do you have any ideas on game preservation?
I'm assuming he just means holding it somewhere for later, right? Like
Could be.
Some,
I mean,
in some hard drive somewhere.
Or preserving games in the terms of we have deals ending with companies that result in games falling off the digital platform.
I'm thinking of two different things. Okay. So if we're talking about just a random societal event where we somewhere save games because we consider them art, I'm not really interested. If we do it, that's awesome. If you're talking about somebody buys a game and that stupid ass company goes out of business and like you can't play your game or, you know, all this crazy stuff, there, yes, I hope that becomes more where people bitch more and it becomes an issue. Because if you buy it, that's different. So like, let's say it's over here and I didn't buy it. I don't care if I'll ever get to experience it or that it's really saved. It's great that it is. What I mean is I won't become involved. It's not really it's not a huge deal. But if you bought that fucking thing, you can bet your ass if it stops working and you just can't use it anymore, then I would want some kind of preservation there. Like a CD key. Yeah, like in the old days, they'd be like, here's our CD crack. So you don't need your disc. We're out of business. That stuff, they need to fix that, especially with digital services.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest one is this game called Gigantic. I told you about it in 2016, I want to say. It was a 5v5 game. It wasn't a MOBA, but it was like a hero team deathmatch game.
It reminded me a lot of Battleborn when I played it.
Yes, it had like more action, but it was kind of Battleborn inspired. And
yeah.
Such a fun game. I loved Gigantic, and it got shut down. And there's just no coming back. Same thing, funny enough, you mentioned it with Battleborn next year.
Battleborn, yeah.
Servers shut down. It's been dead for a while. And that'll be the end of it. And no one really plays it, and it's really sad.
I would like for these companies to release an emulator for online. It would be really great. Now, there's probably hundreds of reasons why they don't do that, but it'd be great if they were like, Battleborn's going out of, it's disappearing, but here are the server files for you to make a private server.
What about,
so that at least you can connect.
Remember when Battlefront 2, the original one, had its server shut off and then fans like picked up the servers and like hosted them themselves? Is that possible nowadays?
Yeah, because you see MMOs. I mean, there's like 100,000 cracked WoW servers. Wow. And a lot of them, people, I think they have a bad rap for like, they're piracy, like they're dens of piracy. I've actually been on multiple ones, and it was like huge communities, 200, 300, 500 people who just wanted to play WoW and didn't have $15. And were like, I would love to play this game. And then the company or the people putting it together will like fix spawn rates. So like you get more gold. So things are a little easier to buy so you can level faster. There's so many of those. Not all games have a server cluster like that, though. People get mixed up and think every game that's online has something you can package easily and you can run on your PC. That's actually not correct. Some games, the way they're set up, don't necessarily work that way. But yeah, it'd be great, man. I'd love to see any game that we play in some way be saved like that. Battleborn was the one I was trying to think of. I'm glad you mentioned it because I was really expecting it, but sad at the same time.
It doesn't come as a surprise for sure.
No.
Last question is actually this time. When looking forward, what games would you require your future kids to play so they would have close to or the same experience with games as you?
So if I was forcing them to have one?
Yeah, that's the thing. I would let them play whatever.
Yeah, so I would.
Because if they are my kin, they will have good taste. It is in the blood.
Right. It's impossible to know. I can't think of it. Shut up, dog.
I don't know. I'm not very. I've realized this is one of my worst traits as a gamer. I'm not good at making like on the nose, personalized game suggestions at times for a person I know directly. I can do it for a group of people if I know like, hey, if you're an RPG fan, you'll like this, or if you like this game, you'll like this. But if you're like new and stepping into gaming, like my girlfriend hadn't played like a lot of modern games for a while when I had met her. And so the first game I started her on is fucking BioShock because I'm like, this game blows my mind. It's so good.
Shit.
Dark, dreary first-person shooter. She's like, and this was like our first month of dating. She's like, I don't really like this that much. Right. Kudos to her honesty, by the way. But yeah, I eventually then I was like looking at my physical rack, which was a lot smaller than it is now. And I had Persona 5 sitting there. I was like, I guess I'll try this. And she loved it. Loved it. Like, played it for 5 hours, like, in love with it. And I'm like, I would have never guessed 100+ hour JRPG would be what clicked. That had, like, school time and shit. Like, I just never, ever would have guessed.
I mean, it's hard to know, like, for family and stuff, because some of the games I play, I would have to wait a certain age before I'd want them to play, because I do like some more risque, or they might be more violent. I mean, I'm not saying I'm one of those type of people who's like, my child can't play violent games till they're 14, whatever. But I mean, if they're 5, do you know what I'd probably do? I'd probably introduce them to, like, man, I don't even know. I don't even know. I mean, because the games I like would never age well. The games right? Like, it'd be weird to, and
same.
I mean, how do you pass that on? It's an odd question, because I don't know my kids either. Like, it requires thought process of my children too. Like, what do they like? Would they sit through it? Because do you know what I would rather do? I would rather have them read books I've read. Because to me, there's something about a book. It's all words. You see the word the, I see the word the. How we interact with those words will be different. But when it comes to video games, it's interactivity. You turn left, I turn right. We can have a vastly different experience. So to me, I would much rather say, here's or movies. I would love to see, like, my kids, I would love to see, let them see old Disney, the cartoon, the old animated stuff, or maybe some Pixar. It depends. You know what's weird, Maddie? I don't know about you, but you do. What's the game with cartoons in it? Kingdom Hearts. So Kingdom Hearts has Pixar movies as well as Disney.
Yes.
Right. Are you old enough, or did you get to experience older Disney cartoons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, there's some dark ass shit. So Disney, I think we all know Disney's got some racism in some of its cartoons, whatever. We all know that. But what was weird to me is I returned to Toy Story. And I was watching Toy Story, and I was watching Biff or Buff or Butthead or whatever his name is, the kid, the neighbor. And he cuts up his toys, and he glues them back together. Do you remember that? And they meet
Sid?
the baby. Sid, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, I was off. Anyway.
Biff or Buff.
It's Biff, Buff, Bid. It's dark as fuck. And I was just sitting there playing it, or watching the thing, going like, would I let my kids... Like, that would give me nightmares, by the way, at a certain age. If I saw my toys come out with, like, arms off their heads or whatever, that would be nightmare.
So close to home when you're younger, yeah.
Yeah. It's weird because they're adult, really. When you look at it, they are, like, a lot of the stuff we like, it wouldn't be good for kids. It would it would require an age.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because when I was talking about Pokemon, I was mentioning how a lot of people really give it the excuse of, oh, this is kid-friendly. And that's why it hasn't evolved over the years and why it's a really stagnant franchise. And I was like, when you look at all the other Nintendo IP, like Zelda or Super Mario, they are kid-friendly, and their gameplay accessibility and art style is very inviting. And there isn't like this mature chopping of heads and what have you. But there are themes in the universe and moments in the game that make adults stop and pause. And the example I brought up in my video was how if you're playing it as Link and you're on like one of these bridges and you're about to jump off, like an NPC will run up to you and be like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, thinking you're going to kill yourself. And like, if you're a little kid, you're like, oh, who's this guy? And you're just tabbing through the conversation, whatever. But if you're an adult, you're like, oh man, like he was trying to save my life.
Yeah.
And like, that goes like a layer deeper.
There's a context there.
Yeah, exactly. There's these subtle moments in these Nintendo games that can speak to both audiences. And I think the Toy Story example is a little more drastic, where it's like, okay, that's a little creepy. I don't know if we need to see that. Whereas these Nintendo products, I think, kind of bridge a perfect gap. Between these two. I think it's very well possible. It takes a very steady creative hand and a good direction, and not being too overbearing on one side or another.
Dude, it's so weird you say that, because I was talking to a friend about comedy, and I grew up on Jim Carrey, who's over the top consistently all the time, and Naked Gun over the top all the time, and then you get and Ricky Bobby Talladega Nights, I guess, is like that. But then you get the other type of subtle little bit of comedy kind of stuff. Like Click from what's his name, Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler. I love that
Yeah,
movie.
I know we've talked about it before. That's why I brought it up, because I was
Yeah.
like, at least he'll know that one. And
Yeah.
and what's weird is that requires the writer to understand that there's a fine line, that you can't go too far. And I'm watching TV shows right now, and it's strange. I watch Parks and Rec, which is one show which I adore, and they do another show. The producers do another show that's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And Brooklyn Nine-Nine is super shallow. It's just one-liners all the way through. And then Parks and Rec is almost the same thing, except the one-liners are all curbed way down, and it's almost like Simpsons versus South Park. And it's so weird to me to see like how difficult that must be, because I would have an easier time going balls to the wall. I'd be like, every moment, no worries, we're going 100%. I think it requires a finesse that's fucking freakish if you're a writer of a TV show or a cartoon, to understand how to weave in and out without going too far one way. Dude, imagine how hard that. I'm sure they have a bunch of people helping them, but it must be insanely difficult to be
Even
like.
The most recent Toy Story kind of had that delicate back and forth of like, oh, it's a fun adventure.
But
and there was the creepy part
choice.
with the puppets. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here's a very tough life decision of remaining in your comfort zone or going with someone else on a new adventure. And like, was Woody lost this whole time, or was it actually Bo Peep? You know, that type of shit that it's like an adult looks at that and goes, oh, fuck, like that's, I can relate. And but a little kid can just enjoy the movie as is. Yeah. It's tough. It's very, very tough.
Yeah, it'd be cool to get a writer. Games, I'm sure, the same way, where it's like, do you go over the top with your action through the entire thing? And even Call of Duty, they've talked about, like, how do you pull it back, and then how do you go? It'd be cool to have somebody, like, be able to explain what that process is, because I bet you it's difficult as fuck. Whether it's games, whether it's movies, whatever, to try to... Because if you go all balls out, I think that's much easier than if you're just, like...
Because you have a direction. You don't have to, like, be like, wait, we had these two moments in succession, which were a little dark. Do we... dial one back now? Do we go light, dark, light, dark? Does our story pattern get predictable? Like, you know, that it's got to be really tough.
Yeah, it would be cool to... I wish there was a... I'll have to look to see if there's, like, somebody who's done a game that's sort of got a little humor,
I'm sure subtlety is the key, because I'm sure you can have consistent, like, happy moments with, like, dark undertones, for example, right?
Well, Kingdom Hearts is that way, right? Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think Kingdom Hearts is a good example.
Because you can have, like... a happy moment with like really beautiful music and kind of like see where they're heading with it, and that can evoke something in like an older player. I think Kingdom Hearts is kind of known for that. Like make you go like, man, I remember these characters when I was a kid, that kind of stuff. So, but for other kids, they're like, yeah, I'm talking to Winnie the Pooh. Isn't this great? And that's all it is to them.
Right. Yeah. It is for sure true.
All right, that's our last question for the week, and that'll wrap up a hour and a half H.A.M Radio podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you who took the time to listen to the end of the show. If you did so, you can tag us on Twitter at Jeremy Pinter and at G27Status. A lot of you did it this last week, like a shit ton. Really high activity. Yeah, we're very thankful for that, because for us, that means that we know you're getting through the show, and that means we have to be doing something right. So this week's hashtag, we'll go to themes.
We finished on subtlety. And I was like, subtlety, but then I was like, there's probably 8 million people using, you know, a typical English word. What'd you say, themes?
Yeah,
like just
that's
themes?
kind of generic. Yeah, that's kind of generic.
Okay, what? Oh, yeah, I don't want to use that one. I almost blurted something out that would have been completely unacceptable. No, man. Okay, now my brain is in such a dark place.
Okay, so
it's the darkest dark I've ever darked. I'm glad I didn't say it.
Actually, Sid's Toys?
Yeah, anything but what I'm thinking.
Okay, Sid's Toys will be it. That is my choice of good and evil to represent our show here today. We'll let Karak go purge his mind now. We thank each and every one of you, for supporting the show. If you'd like to get involved a little bit deeper, head to the Patreon. $1 gets you early access. A couple more bucks gets you in the Discord. You can ask more questions. And we look forward next week to talking about all the new announcements, all the brand new information coming out between the Game Awards as well as Sony's State of Play. So we'll talk with you guys then, and it should be a good one. Peace out.
Peace out.